Upon delivery into the workshop, you first want to inspect the cut and make sure there's no physical damage caused by transit, and it'd be a good idea to pay attention to the tilt and the shock device on the side of the box. Once you're happy everything seems in order, it's just a matter of unpacking it. Straps off the side, and best to actually get some assistance to lift the box vertically off the machine, just to not let it rub on the side of the machine. Once removed, we can actually take the plastic cover off the top. Before tilting the screen, just undo the thumb dial, lift the screen into place, do it up nice and tight. It's a matter of then setting it up ready for operation. So there's two accessory kits, one in the front, one in the rear of the machine. You can remove the accessory boxes. And then go through the procedure of unboxing and checking that everything's there as per the scope of delivery. The first box we removed from the front of the machine actually houses the hoses in the instruction manual. So remove the hoses, we can gain access to the instruction manual because it's imperative we actually follow through on the actual steps for initialising the machine. The box we removed from the rear of the machine houses the rest of the devices required for its operation. So we have the PAG oil bottle, PO oil bottle for our hybrid oil, UV dye and waste oil bottle. You'll also find the power supply lead to run the machine, an adapter required for filling the internal tank, a calibration check weight, and of course eyewear and safety gloves, in addition to a cover to keep the machine dust free. Once you've unpacked and confirmed that everything's available as per the scope of delivery, your first step's to apply the hoses. So we like to apply a thin film of oil to the actual hose fittings themselves, and then it's a matter of just screwing them on using a 17mm spatter onto the machine itself. Then it's simply a matter of matching our high pressure hose to our high pressure fitting and then screwing it into the actual correct port. Once we screw the fitting into the correct port, we tension it to around 8 Newton-meters until it's nice and firm. Then once the high side's fitting, just apply the low side hose fitting directly under the low side adapter. Once the hoses have been fitted, the next step is to actually fill the oil bottles. So we want to ensure that we get the bottles correct, the right oil in the right bottle, so the first step is we'll fill up our PAG oil bottle first. To fill our oil bottle, unscrew the lid from the bottle itself. You want to remove the plunger, fill the actual container, and before actually putting the plunger back in, it's wise to actually lubricate the seal around the plunger itself and the shaft. Refit the plunger back on a slight angle, and then slowly depress the plunger until there's oil, slight amount of oil coming through the tube itself. From that point, we align the tube with the bottle lid and then slowly depress the lid back on and screw back into place. Once our bottles have been filled, it's a matter of just applying them to the machine. It's important to note that they actually have locators on the rear so that they can't be fitted to the machine incorrectly. From there, it's a matter of just aligning them. Start with the waste oil first. Simply clipping them into place. Once the oil bottles have been attached to the front of the machine, the next step is actually to go to the rear of the machine, but prior to powering the machine up, and actually check and make sure that the oil level is correct in the vacuum pump. The next step is to actually attach the power supply lead and switch the unit on. Upon switching the unit on, it will go into its initial setup mode. Upon the machine powering up, the first stage of setup is actually choosing a language. Using the buttons on the bottom of the screen, we actually go through and select language first, then our unit of measurement. Then we can go through and actually alter the date and time using the numeric keys on the side of the machine. Once we've entered in the date and time, we can tick OK. Next step is to actually edit the header. Depends on workshop details, but you can actually use the keys on the side to enter in your workshop's details. Once your workshop details have been entered into the machine, the next step is to run a service vacuum. This involves actually attaching the couplers, the high and low side couplers, to the service ports on the machine. We close the taps. And then following the prompts, press enter. It's of most importance we let this process complete itself rather than just pausing halfway through. This actually flushes the machine and sets it up ready for a tank filling process. Approximately 5 minutes. This step actually vacuums itself out internally in preparation for tank filling. Once the service vacuum is completed, it's time to actually add refrigerant to the machine itself. It's worth noting, just ensure before fitting the adapters to your refrigerant, just ensure that the copper washer is actually fitted inside the adapter itself. To fill the internal bottle, we attach the low side hose to the liquid port of our source tank, close the tap on the fitting, and then open the tap on the bottle. Using the numerical keys on the side of the screen, we enter in how much refrigerant we need to fill. Our minimum requirement is 4 kilos, so we type in 4 kilos and then press enter. And our tank fill is now in progress. Once the tank fill is completed, it'll prompt you to disconnect the hoses. Then enters into the first stage of a recovery process, where it's actually cycling the refrigerant through the machine. The next step in the process is unit activation. It comes up with a prompt giving us 30 days trial to activate the machine. We need to activate the machine within that 30-day period. The process is quite simple. We click on enter. The actual unit generates a personal product code. We document this product code, enter it into the website, which then generates a machine code. We then enter the machine code into the system and the activation process is complete. Once you've gained access to the website, you need to set up your customer details. Once you've formed a profile, you can then go in and activate your machine. The machine details need to be entered, including the product code. Once the product code's entered, it will generate the machine code, which you then go back to the machine and enter in to complete the activation process. Once the activation code's been generated, it's just a matter of using the keys on the screen to enter in your code. It is worth noting, just ensure your customer number and password to gain access to the website is documented for future reference. Once you've entered in the code, it's a matter of pressing enter on the screen. My suggestion would also be to go through to the main settings and print out so you have a record of that. Once the activation process is completed, you can see that we head back to the main screen. In the charging process of the internal cylinder, we actually stash a certain amount of refrigerant inside the manifold and the hoses, hence why we only show approximately 2.6 kilos of refrigerant instead of the initial 4 kilos that we charged. For fully automatic functionality of the machine, we press on the auto button. This takes us through to a screen that allows us to identify the vehicle we want to charge. We can actually use the internal database, or alternatively, enter our vehicle details in manually. Once we've entered in the vehicle details, we press enter. Once vehicle details are set, we go to our options menu for the automatic functions. So nitrogen leak test we actually aren't running. We'll set our vacuum time through to 20 minutes. We'll actually perform a leak test and we'll set our charge to 600 grams. From here we have the options of oil inject, yes or no, additional oil, and select our PAG and PO. So we're actually going through and selecting our oil menu. Yes, we want to inject oil. We only want to inject the amount that we recovered, so we don't add additional oil. And then we select our PAG, and it's not a hybrid vehicle, so we leave our PO oil off. Enter. We enter in our dye, and we'll add, in this case, 3 mil. Once our details are entered in relative to our volumes of oil and refrigerant, it then likes to do an internal flush of the hoses again. So enter, connect the service hoses to the storage ports and open the coupler valves, exactly the same we did in the initialisation or the original setup. Other than entering the information manually, we can actually use the internal database. So in this case, we're going to actually service a Volkswagen Passat. We scroll through to Volkswagen. From here, we scroll down to Passat. In this case, it's an A33, 2.5, 11 to 19, from 2011 upwards. Our refrigerant charge is documented. We can add or continue. Takes us through our sub-menu again, so we will go through and we'll change our vacuum time through to 20 minutes. Our leak test will perform and our charge is set, and we will charge through both sides. Oil inject, yes. Additional oil, no. Yes, it is PAG. And in this case, we're going to inject 3 mil of dye. Do you want to flush the service hoses? Yes. Connect the service hoses to the storage ports and open the coupler valves. Alternatively, from going through the auto function, we can actually control individual phase of the service manually. So in this case, we just want to recover from the vehicle. It requests us to connect both hoses to the vehicle and open the couplers. And the process starts. The second stage of our recovery process is actually where we use the compressor and the vacuum pump in series to perform a deep recovery. For the manual vacuum function, we hit the vacuum key. The machine ensures that there's no pressure in the lines prior to going into vacuum. We're using the same vehicle, so we can go forward, and we set our vacuum time. We actually want to perform a vacuum leak test, so we leave that on, and the vacuum process begins. Upon completion of the vacuum process, the machine will then automatically go in and start performing the leak test. To perform the manual charge process, enter on the charge key, We're using the same vehicle. We have the option of altering the charge. In this case, we're going to charge through both sides, and that is the correct charge for the vehicle. So we go forward, and then we had the option of entering in our dye. So yes, we want to inject dye. If we actually leave the oil amount at 0, it will inject the exact amount of oil that it removed from the system. If you want to add oil, then we would use the numerical keys on the side. We want to actually use PAG oil, so we need to change that to PAG and leave PO off. Enter. Dye, we're going to actually inject 3 mils of dye. Do you want to flush the service hoses? No. We connect the service adapters or the couplings to the air conditioning system on the vehicle. Enter. Once the charge is complete, we actually follow the prompts on the screen, close the coupler valves, disconnect the service hoses from the vehicle and press enter. Once the charge is complete, we can open the taps and then start the vehicle and check the system's performance. Once the process has been completed, we have the option where we can actually print out the results. This will give us an indication of the refrigerant charge and the dye charge. From the main screen, we press next to enter into the menu. The machine menu allows us to go and look in functions, settings and maintenance. If we go into functions, we can perform an air conditioning test on the vehicle, nitrogen leak test. We can flush hoses, perform a system flush on the vehicle, fill the internal cylinder, and in addition, export refrigerant tracking. From the functions menu, we can perform a nitrogen leak test. Once we confirm the vehicle, we have 2 options. We can perform a nitrogen leak test with a tracer, or we perform a nitrogen leak test whereby we charge the system with nitrogen and then actually check the decay of pressure over time. We need to connect our nitrogen supply with the tracer to the port on the side of the AC unit. It will prompt us to then adjust our nitrogen pressure between 8 and 12 bar. Then connect the service hose to the system under test. Do not attempt to remove these connections while under pressure. And the process begins. To check the accuracy of the equipment, we can actually go through and perform a calibration check. To do this, we have to access the main menu. From the main menu, we go into maintenance. From maintenance, we scroll down to calibration check. The machine will then prompt us to place the calibration weight onto the magnet from underneath the machine. Once the weight's been placed on the bottom of the machine, it's as simple as pressing enter. Without disturbing the machine, it will then prompt us to remove the weight from the bottom of the machine. Once prompted to remove the calibration weight, we press enter and the process passes. If there is a calibration issue, it will fail the calibration test. At 68 kilos of refrigerant usage, the machine requires a filter change. It gives you a warning at the 45 kilogram mark that this needs to be performed. You need to access the filter maintenance program from the maintenance menu. We press enter, it actually prompts us of how much refrigerant capacity we've used and do we want to replace the filter now. If we decide to change the filter, we click on enter. We connect the service hoses to the storage ports and open a couple of valves. This is to remove any refrigerant from the filter circuit. The filter assembly screws straight back on. Just ensure the O-rings are seated correctly. Once the refrigerant's been cleared from the filter circuit, we need to enter in the serial number on the replacement filter.